Okay. So that should stay red. Okay. So, is there any way you can test to see if this thing is working where you are? All right.
I'm a great day.
You just said you had to learn it. And you only have to know it's the other
Say again. Okay. All right. So start meeting.
I wouldn't have been like, I still don't know what it means.
Yeah.
Good day. It's like a greeting.
It must already be started somewhere. Why don't I see it?
Oh, shoot. But we're doing the same thing today. It's more like the implementation.
Anybody hungry?
And then spin the TV around.
There, you read.
Why don't I find the
West
Zoom
Side
in
Rock.
here?
Well, not we'll find What's that?
Good right now, thank you.
Oh wait. What's this back here? All right, got it. All right, maximize that,
And if you give them hard candy,
and then spin the TV. Okay.
thanks. I learned all the tricks.
All right. And then the cameras as well, I assume. All right. Yeah.
the way. There are few. I heal. Hey Russo.
You there?
I preach. Luo. I loose. I destroy.
You hear it now?
Patho. I trust
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, I hear you coming
Tempo.
through the
I
audio on the
send.
computer. I
Iscuo.
think that it did that because I was
I
connected
affirm,
through
I
the Zoom
believe.
on my phone.
Sozo. I save. Right, so let's
Zoom's
read through
working?
that Greek list again together. Echo. Therapuo. Keruso. Luo. Patho. Tempo.
Say it again.
Iscuo. Sozo. And the last three. Amy. I am. Or I exist. Amy, I am, I exist. Good. Me. Not. Who. Not. Amy. Me. Who. Amy. Me. Who. Ago. Arcuo. Baptizo. Blepo. Grafo. Didasco. Doxazo. Hetuemazo. Echo. Therapuo. Keruso. Luo. Patho. Tempo. Biscuo. Sozo. Amy. Me. Who. Does everyone have those memorized? No, but you will by next Sunday, won't you?
I get to come back up and show the screen on this computer here.
You'll know them by next Sunday, won't you? Yes.
Keep what?
No.
I don't know where it is.
All right, so in the definitions of the book, you have present and you have future. So the way it's listed, it says ago and then oxo. So the second form is the future form. So just memorize the present form, okay? Good. All right, so last week you all just stared at me the whole time as I hit you with a bunch of stuff,
Like where it just says Zoom.
right? You were overwhelmed last week.
Like Zoom with a check
Yeah, I did that on purpose. So that's just kind of how language learning is you get sprayed with a fire hose, and then you go back through and you just pick it apart. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to pick it apart a little bit, and then we're going to practice translating and parsing together, okay? So don't think that I'm just going to like throw you in and leave you there alone. Like I'm going to throw you in, and then I'm going to jump in with you and be like, let's do this together. All right? Deal? Some of you looked really angry at me last week. You were just like, I'm like, well, it's Greek. It's not easy, so. All right, so we talked about inflection. So what is inflection? Does anyone remember?
Where it says TFM.
Olivia?
When a word changes to show its grammatical function in the sentence.
Wow, good job. Yes, so inflection is when a word changes to show its grammatical function in a sentence. In English, we don't really have this quite as much as Greek does. In Greek, you can have a multitude of different endings on a verb, and that will change its function in the sentence. A noun can have 8 different endings to show its different grammatical function in the sentence. There are 3, 6, 9, 12, 24, 32 ways to say the in Greek.
Okay.
All right. You want to hear them all?
Turn the camera a little bit so you can see
Miss
it,
Abby
because I
said.
know she can't.
So there are 32 different ways to say the in Greek, and that's how inflection comes in. So the different form that the definite article is using, the different ending on a noun, shows which part of speech it is. So it can show whether it's the subject, it shows possession or relationship, it can show if it's a direct object, an indirect object, or a direct address. So it's actually really cool. It's one of the things that I love about Greek is that it is just so clear when you look at it exactly how it's functioning in a sentence. I always hated it in school when we would have to go through a sentence and underline the subject once, underline the verb twice, circle the direct object, do stars around the indirect, all that stuff. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. But with Greek, it makes a lot of sense because it just changes the word for you. So there's no confusing it with anything else. Right, so unlike English, Greek is a highly inflectional language. So verbs in Greek, which specifically we're learning about today, are made up of two parts. They're made up of the stem and they're made up of an affix. All right, so the stem is the lexical. Lexical means dictionary. So in Greek, you're going to hear lexicons, lexical. That they don't really use the word dictionary. I guess it sounds smarter. I don't know exactly why, but that's just the way it is, okay? And so that is the dictionary or the lexical meaning of the word. So if we look at the verb blepo, does anyone remember what blepo means? I see, right? I see the blimp. Blepo the blimp. I see. So the stem of blepo is blep. It's beta, lambda, epsilon, p. That is the stem of blepo. But then the affix o tells us that this is a present, active, indicative, first person, singular verb. Does that make sense a little bit? Anybody? Make sense a little bit? Boys, does it make sense a little bit? Right, so blep is the stem. The lexical form of blepo is just simply blepo. For any verb, the lexical form is going to be the present, active, indicative, first person, singular form. So whenever you look at a definition of a verb in a lexicon, it's going to be I see, I read, I teach, I speak. Does that make sense? If something doesn't make sense, tell me so that I can try to explain it another way. Because we have a lot of people in here, and I'm guessing that all of you have different learning styles. Okay, and I haven't been with you enough yet to know what your learning styles are. All right, so you just tell me if there's something I can do to make it more understandable. Okay? Yes?
So it's just the symbol at the end, the little
The omega.
omega
Mhm.
that makes it I.
Yes, the omega at the end makes it I. Yes, it is. Yeah. So affixes can be prefixes, infixes, and suffixes. So something that attaches to the beginning, the middle, or the end of a word to tell us its tense, voice, mood, person, and number. So number 5 on your quiz was to tell me one part of a verb you have to identify. And I told you that it could be tense, voice, mood, person, or number. So hopefully some of you caught that I gave you the 5 options while you were taking your quiz. Right? Did anyone catch that? A few people did. I saw them look at me like, are you tricking me right now? I wasn't. I was giving you the answers. All right, so tense. So there are many different tenses in Greek. There is the present tense, which is I am teaching. I teach. There is future tense. I will teach. There is imperfect tense. I have taught. There is aorist tense. I taught. There is perfect tense, which I don't know how we would say that in English for I taught. The perfect tense, I was just talking to Pastor Rovelin the other day after he preached and was talking about all the Greek stuff. We were having a lot of fun. And I was like, verb tenses are beautiful. He's like, how about that perfect? And I'm like, oh, the perfect tense is my favorite. And Dan Gill was standing across the lobby going, so the perfect tense we don't really have in English, but it's a past action with ongoing results in the present. So I got saved would be perfect tense. We got saved in the past, but once we get saved, we continue to be saved. Our standing before the Lord is saved. Okay? And then there's pluperfect and future perfect, which we won't get into. So tense, right? The only tense we're learning right now is the present tense. Okay, so if I give you a verb and say, what is the tense if today, any verb I give you, what is the tense of this verb? You're going to say present, okay? So then we have voice. So what is voice? Voice is the way in which the speaker chooses to relate the grammatical subject of a verb to the action of that verb, okay? So there are 3 voices. There's active, middle, and passive. Does anyone remember what the active voice is? Active, you do something. Okay. Anyone else? I'm sorry? Physical. Kind of. Anyone else? Active voice.
In the active?
Hmm?
In the active?
In the active. So with the active voice, the subject is doing the action. Okay? Active subject is doing the action. So what is the middle voice? My example for active voice was I eat cake.
Oh yeah, she eats cake.
I eat cake. So middle voice would be I eat cake for myself. So middle voice is an action that the subject does in order to benefit him or herself. And then passive voice would be cake eats me. All right, cake eats me. So the subject is, or the action is being done to the subject. If you have your Bibles and you want to turn there, you can. There's a really good example of this in Titus chapter 2. Titus chapter 2, verse 14. Okay, so that verse says, who gave himself for us, that he might redeem us from all iniquity, and purify unto himself a peculiar people, zealous of good works. All right, so the verb there, gave, is an aorist, which is a punctiliar past action. So one time Jesus gave himself. So aorist, active. So this is an active voice. So Jesus, the subject, performed the action of giving himself. Okay, his life wasn't taken from him, he gave it. Does that make sense? So we see that. Who gave himself that he might redeem us from all iniquity. So redeem is aorist, and the voice of this one is middle. So what is the middle voice?
Benefits himself. It's done for himself.
So it's done to another, okay? Subject is acting in his own interest, right? So Jesus redeemed us from all iniquity, and that is in the middle voice. Isn't that cool? So the subject, Jesus, is doing this action in his own interest. Jesus redeemed us. We benefit from it, don't we? But he was doing it in his own interest. So he redeemed us from all iniquity and purify unto himself a peculiar people. Purify there is also an active verb, so it's something that Jesus is doing. But I just, even just this simple change of voice in the Greek makes such a difference. It's not something we see in English, but it deepens your understanding of what's being said in the Greek. I don't know, I think that's cool, and I noticed it today during the preaching, so I just thought I would share it with you guys since we were talking about voice today. Good, so then the passive, the subject is being acted upon. All right, so we have learned, what tense have we learned? Present. What voice have we learned? Active. Right, and so right now we are only learning the active voice. So if I say, what is the voice of this? You're going to say active voice. All right, so then we have mood. So mood is the way the speaker relates the verbal idea to reality. So we will only discuss the indicative mood in this class. So if I say, what is the mood? You're going to say indicative. So indicative mood, the speaker affirms the factuality of a statement. So in Titus 2, it says that he gave himself. So that is in the indicative. That's a matter of fact, right? Jesus gave himself. Not a question. It's not a command. It's a statement of fact. Jesus gave himself. So we have, what tense have we learned? Present. What voice have we learned? What mood have we learned? All right, so any verb I give you today, I'm going to say, give me the tense, voice, and mood of this. And you're going to say? Good. All right, so then we have also person and number. So Greek verbs are very specific in that they have different endings to tell you the person. So person is talking about first person, second person, or third person. And it also gives you the number, whether that's singular or plural. Pastor Rowan the other day in Romans 12, we see that that is talking to plural. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice. I had never looked at that passage that way before, of not looking at it in the singular as an individual, but the plurality there is so significant. And so, see, all of these things are helpful to our understanding of the scriptures, okay? And it really just causes us to stop and pause. And I think really what it does is just makes us meditate more effectively on the scriptures. So that's what we want. All right, so we have person, which will be first, second, or third. So tense, I've given you voice, mood, person, and then number, singular or plural. Very good. So English does not do this. We can say I run, you run, he runs, we run, y'all run, they run. All right, the verb does not change there, except for third person singular becomes runs, but it's not that different. So we can see here, first person singular is I, first person plural is we. So if there is more than one of me, I would say we, right? So second singular is you, second plural is y'all. All right, so if I'm talking to Mariah, I would like, Mariah, you do that. But if I'm talking to Mariah, Shandy, and Olivia, I'd say, y'all do that, right? So second singular and plural. And then third singular would be he, she, or it, or third plural would be they. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Is that crystal clear?
Wait, why is it y'all instead of you guys?
I just like y'all better. You can say yins if you want. That's a Pennsylvania thing. Yins, you guys. A lady when I waited tables yelled at me for saying, how you guys doing today? Because she wasn't a guy. Y'all's just safe.
Right. So at the end of the verb, so like it adds omega, would it add a different letter to the end for different?
Yes, so the ending will change for the different ones of these. All right. So these are those endings. So these endings are the present active indicative verb endings. Okay, so these endings up here, you will only ever see for present active indicative. Okay? So if it was present middle indicative, it would have a different ending. If it was present passive indicative, it would have a different ending. So we are only learning present active indicative. But if you see o, ace, a, amen, ete, usi, you will know that is present active indicative because that is the present active indicative ending. Does that make sense? Yes, all right. So if I was going to do future active indicative, just one letter would change that. So for future, so say Salmon sent to Susie, so you just add a sigma in there. So that would be, oh, well, that's future. But right now we don't have a sigma up there, right? So these are always present active indicative. All right, so we have O is first person singular. So blepo, I see. We have ace, second person singular. Blepace, you see. We have a, third person singular. Blepe, he, she, or it sees. Blepamen, first plural, we see. Blepete, y'all see. Blepusi, they see. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so we need to memorize this chart in order to be able to translate more quickly. So let's say them all together. O, ace, a, amen, eta, usi. O, ace, a, amen, eta, usi. O, ace, a, amen, eta, usi. Everyone stand up. You remember last week you did the weird arm thing? So this is first singular, second singular, third singular, first plural, second plural, third plural, right? So, O, ace, a, amen, eta, usi. Everyone's saying them. I see some people are just like, that's not going to help you memorize, okay? O, ace, a, amen, eta, usi. O, ace, a, amen, eta, usi. Shandy, do them.
O, ace, a, amen, eta, usi.
Good job. O, ace, a, amen, eta, usi. O, ace, a, amen, eta, usi. Matthew, you do them.
O,
Ace, usi. All right, all together. O, ace, a, amen, eta, usi. O, ace, a, amen, eta, usi. O, ace, a, amen, eta, usi. Isaac, you do them. Good job. All together. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. 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 Ben.
O, ace, Uzi.
Good job. All right. All together. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. Kate. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. Jada. Good job. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. Peyton.
O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi.
Good job. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. Olivia. Try again. O, ace, a. Good job. Do it again. Good job. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. Becca. Good job. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. Good job. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. Mariah. Good job. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. Emily. Good job. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. Great job. You can ask me. Does everyone have it memorized now? Huh? Good job. All right. So those are the present, active, indicative verb endings. You see O, ace, a, amen, ete, or usi on the end of a verb, you're going to know that is present, active, indicative. It will only ever be present, active, indicative. All right? I will only ever mean I, just like O will only ever mean I am doing something. Does that make sense? Good. All right, so we see here it attached to a verb, the verb luo. So we see here the lexical form, we have luo. So if you look up this verb in the dictionary, this is the form you're going to find. But luo can take any of these endings and a whole bunch of other endings. You know that book, that page in the back of your book that I told you not to look at because it's scary? All of those. Okay, but we're not going to learn all of those, so you can breathe easy. All right, so we have luo, I loose, luace, you loose, lue, he looses. Okay, luamen, we loose, luete, y'all loose, lucy, they loose. Okay, does that make sense? You see how, so for the lexical form, you have luo, but the ending, the O will drop off and take on whatever other ending it needs to show you the person and number. Does that make sense? Okay, so we have the stem and we have the endings. All right, Ben, what is the second person plural present active indicative ending?
Second plural, that would be, Luetta?
Just the ending. Just the ending. So we have O, ace, A.
Ramen,
Not ramen. Ete. Right? So second plural ending is ete. Good. Kate, what is the first person singular ending? Oh, good. Peyton, what is the first person plural ending?
The first one?
Amen. Very good. All right. Olivia, what is the second person singular ending?
Ace.
Ace. Very good. Brogan, what is the third person plural ending?
Sorry, what?
What is the third person plural ending? So we have O, so this is a singular. O, first person, A, second person, A, third, Amen, Etta, Usi. So what would the third person plural ending be? Usi, very good. All right. And Shandy, what is the third person singular ending?
A.
A, very good. All right, so when you see a verb, I'm going to ask you to parse it. So what it means to parse a verb is that you need to identify the tense, which what is the tense that we know? The voice, what is the voice that we know? Mood, person, and number. So for a second, third, singular, or plural. And then you need to give the lexical word. So the word that the word it comes from, the word you would find in the dictionary or the lexicon to tell us what this word is. So if I give you the verb, who can read this? Who can read this? Noah? We have lambda. Amen. Put it all together. Luamen, right. So you would give me the tense, voice, mood, person, number. All right, so it is so what is the tense of this verb? Jada? What is the tense of this verb? Present, good. And what is the voice of this verb, Becca? Active, good. And what is the mood of this verb, Kate? Indicative, good. And what is the person of this verb, Isaac? First person. And what is the number of this verb, Shandy? Luamen. Number would be singular or plural?
Oh. Plural.
Plural, very good. All right, so you would say it's all of that, and then you would say it's from luo, because if we take off this verb ending, we just have the stem lu, and we know that what usually goes on the end is the omega. All right, does that make sense? Yes? All right, so we just shorthand it because we don't want to write out all of those things, and you can just say PAI 1P. Present, active, indicative, first plural. Okay? That's helpful. I don't like writing out all of those things. Right? Good. So let's practice. Do you guys need a break? We only have like 13 more minutes. Are you good if we just go through? We're all good with that? If you need to go to the bathroom, just go. All right. So what would be the tense of this verb? We'll just go around. Kate, what would be the tense of this verb? Present. Well, how do you know that? Talk loud, please. Yeah, so at the end it has O, so we know that that's a present. All right, so what would be the voice of this verb, Shandy?
Passive. Passive.
Passive. Why would it be passive? You don't know. All right. Olivia, you want to help her? Passive. So it's not passive. Okay, so we know that the O ending is always going to be present, active. Right, we have not learned passive or middle. So this is present, active. All right, and what would be the mood, Olivia? Indicative, very good. All right, what would be the person of this verb, Noah? First. How do you know that? Oh, good. Broken, what would be the number? Singular. Very good. How do you know that? Oh, Isaac, what would be the lexical form? You don't know. All right. Do you know what we would do to try to find it? No. All right, so what you can do is you can take the stem. So we know that this ending is just an ending and that the stem is aku. And then you can go to your book on page 23 and you can look for the word that has the stem of aku. You can also look in the back of your book if you want for the Greek English vocabulary on page 247. So what would the lexical form be? That would be the translation. But what would be the Greek word for the lexical form? So we have the stem of aku. So have you looked at your vocabulary list to see if there's a word that looks like that? Akuo, yeah. So that's the lexical form. Does that make sense how you got that? Yes? All right. Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions? What questions do we have? If you're wondering it, someone else is wondering it, I promise. Auditors, do we have any questions? Ms. Ann?
Since you said that the O is just the ending, why is the stem not a ku instead of a kuo?
The stem is aku.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and so the O just goes on the end just because it's easier to find that way.
Okay.
When you look at a lexicon, you know if it has the omega ending, that it's a verb, and just,
Okay.
I don't know exactly why they do it that way, but I'm thankful it makes,
Right.
as you get into it deeper, it makes
Okay.
more sense.
So the lexical form is not the stem, it's the word.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Good. And then the translation of that, because it's present, active, indicative, first person singular, it's not going to be we here, it's not going to be y'all here, it's going to be I here. Because akuo means I here. Does that make sense? Yep. Good. All right. So, Ben, can you read this word for us? Agamemnon. Very good. Very good. So what would be the tense of this verb?
Present.
Present. How do you know that?
That's all we know.
Very good. But also, amen is only ever a present, active, indicative verb ending, right? Good. All right, Matthew, what would be the voice? How do you know that?
Because it's
The ending. Yeah, good. Peyton, what would be the mood?
I don't know.
Is it imperative?
Sure.
No. Is it a command? That's imperative, actually. That would be imperative. But interrogative, that's the word I'm looking for. Is it interrogative?
Sure.
No. So we've only learned one. Do you remember the mood that we learned? Shows factuality of the statement. It indicates the truth. Indicates.
Glad you quit.
Indicative. Does that sound familiar?
Does not.
Do you think that's probably what it is?
Sure.
Yeah, it is. All right, so it is indicative. And how do you know that, Peyton? How do you know it's indicative?
I don't.
Well, an answer could be, I know that it's indicative because amen is a present active indicative verb ending. Okay? And it's only ever a present active indicative verb ending. Does that make sense? No. Okay. How can I help you understand it?
I don't know.
You don't know. All right. So amen. So indicative is the mood. So it's not a question. It's not a command. It's not anything else. It's not a wish. It is this is fact. This is what's happening. Okay. So I am teaching. That is indicative because it is a matter of fact that I am standing up here right now and I am teaching you all. Right? It's not a question. Is Hannah teaching? I mean, maybe it's a question. Like, is she actually doing this? I don't know. It's not a wish. I wish Hannah was teaching. It is fact. Hannah is teaching. Okay? And so that is what present active indicative is. And so for amen, that is only ever a present active indicative ending. Does that make sense?
I think so.
And so if it was a different ending, so I don't even remember the other endings right now, but there are other endings that we're not going to learn in here, but if you continue to study Greek, which I hope you all do, you'll learn and you'll look at that and say that means something completely different. Does that help a little bit?
It does.
Okay, good. All right, so Becca, what would be the person of this verb?
First.
First. How do you know that?
Because the ending is first person.
Because the ending is first person. Good. All right. So Mariah, what would be the number of this verb? Plural. How do you know that?
Because on is
Yes. Very good. And Jacob, what would be the lexical form of this verb?
aga.
Ago. How do you know that? Yeah. Very good. And Emily, how would we translate this? I leave. We leave. Very good. All right, does that make sense? What questions do we have? Does this make more sense today than it did last week?
Yes.
Yes. Does this make more sense today than it did on the last slide?
Yes.
Yes. Some of you are like, I don't know. All right, let's do it again. You're doing great. All right, so Kate, can you read this verb for us, please?
Change.
Oh, sorry. You know what, let's skip that. I'm not highlighting the ends for you anymore because you guys are too smart. Bleface, very good. Bleface. So Kate, what would be the tense of this verb? Present, how do you know that? Because the ending is present. Good. Shandy, what would be the voice of this verb?
Active.
Active. How do you know that?
Because of the end.
Because of the end. Good job. Olivia, what would be the mood of this verb?
Indicative.
Good. How do you know that?
That's the only one we've learned.
Also, because ace is only ever an indicative ending. Right? Good. All right, Brogan, what would be the person of this verb?
Second.
Second. How do you know that?
Ace.
Yeah, good. Isaac, what would be the number of this verb? Singular. How do you know that? Very good. Matthew, what would be the lexical form of this verb? So that's a bleface. So what is the stem of this? So it would just be blepho. Okay, so that omega drops off and becomes ace to show that it's second singular. All right? And Peyton, how will we translate bleface?
You're asking for the
So what does blepho mean?
blend? No, no,
That's how I remember it. Good job. So blepho, the blend. And you can look in your book on page 23.
Is it IC?
I see, yes. So blepho means I see. So this is second person singular. How would we say that?
I'm sorry, I don't know. Wait, how would we say that word there, or?
So how would we say, what is second person singular in English? The pronoun for it. So it's not I, it's not we, it's not y'all, it's not they. Second singular.
Ace. It's ace, so it would be. Is it we?
That would be first person plural.
Oh.
And y'all would
Sorry,
be.
I always struggle with English.
It's okay. It's okay. Y'all would be second person plural. So what would second person singular be?
You?
You. Yeah, good. So we would say you what? Okay, girls. You see. Very good. So bleface means you see. Good job. All right, well, we're going to do one more. All right. All right, Mariah, Becca, what is the tense? Can you read this verb for us actually first? Akuamen, very good. So what would be the tense of this verb? How do you know that?
Because the ending is only present.
Very good. Mariah, what would be the voice of this verb? Active. How do you know that?
Because the ending is only active.
Very good. Jada, what would be the mood of this verb? How do you know that? Very good. And what would be the person in this verb, Emily? First person, how do you know that? Yeah, good. Kate, what would be the number of this verb? How do you know that? Good. So, Shandy, what would be the lexical form?
I don't know.
Lexical, so like the dictionary form. So you're going to take off the ending. So we would take off almond. So we have the stem. So you can write that down. Go ahead and write that. A coup. All right. And then you can look on page 23 of your book and say, which word on here has a coup as the stem? The list is in alphabetical order.
Here.
That's what it means, but what would be the lexical form? Like, what is the dictionary word that they use there? That's how they remember it. So what is the word that's listed for the vocabulary? The most basic form of this word is akuo. Very good. So that's the lexical form. Akuo. And Olivia, how would we translate that? I hear.
We here.
We hear. Very good. All right, does that make more sense today? Yes, so you're going to look for tense, voice, mood, person, and number. All right, so let's go to your homework real quick. All right, so I forgot that I gave you all an extra week to do your homework. So don't look at the parsing and translating. Just do numbers 1 and 2 is due on Sunday. Number 3 is due for extra credit if you want it to go towards this quiz grade. Okay? And then be ready for a chapter 1 vocabulary quiz next week. Okay, so the vocabulary on page 23, you need to know. All right, any questions? If you have questions this week, feel free to text me or call me, stop me at church, whatever, okay? All right, and can you get, Isaac, can you pray for us, please?
Jesus, thank you for this day. Thank you for all of us you've given us. Thank you for you've had a good class. Please help everybody with their homework done. Let's have a good show tonight.
Thank you.
What does that first word mean again?
Tense. The first, the P at the top,
Yeah.
it means tense. Remember that line, tense, voice, mood, person, number.
Parse means to break.
Sorry.
Parse means to break down into pieces.
Yes. So you take off the endings. You know that the endings are O, A, K, and that's right? So you're going to take that off the endings. Just write it off and then write the stem down. And then you're going to look for that stem in the vocabulary. The stem is what's left without the ending.
And then what's the lexical?
Does that make sense? Well, that's not. That's